Good afternoon. It is Wednesday, November 18th, 2009. Today I want to conclude our conversation on the Federal Reserve, and then after today we can talk about other topics like war and fun things like that. Last video blog, if you remember, I talked about the inflation tax. I made a case for an audit of the Fed. And then I talked about paper money and gold. And I just want to go over a few quick things first before we go into the boom-bust cycle. I want to clear up a few things. First of all, I'm not advocating that we all walk around with gold coins in our pocket. For one, a 1 ounce gold coin in this society would purchase a whole lot. We don't walk around with $1,000 bills in our pocket. I mean, that's ridiculous. We would still use debit cards. We would still use personal checks. We would even still use paper bills that represented gold and silver that we possessed in a money warehouse somewhere. So really, our lives wouldn't change that much. It might be more difficult to obtain a credit card, but that's probably a good thing, is it not? So we would not be walking around with these coins, in other words, all of the time. Some people might. Then the other concern is there enough gold and silver in supply to back our dollar by those metals? Absolutely. The U.S. government alone, not to mention private citizens, own a ton of gold. But even then, I mean, the supply of a metal is irrelevant. If we converted to a gold standard and the supply of gold, was maybe less than we thought it might be, all that means is that the value of a gold coin is going to be greater than it was before, and we might use silver more often than gold. On the contrary, if there was an oversupply of gold, if we converted to a gold standard and discovered that there was way more gold than we ever thought, then it's going to have the opposite effect. Gold is going to decrease in value, and our gold coin, instead of maybe paying for 2 months worth of rent, could buy a t-shirt or something like that. The supply is irrelevant because the free market will adjust its prices accordingly, according to the supplies of gold and silver. All right, let's talk about the boom-bust cycle and its causes. Before I get started, I just want to state my influences. I'm heavily influenced by the Austrian School of Economics, which was founded by Ludwig von Mises and Friedrich Hayek and a few others in the early 20th century. And this school of thought focuses a lot on monetary issues. Because remember, money represents 1/2 of every economic transaction we make in the United States. And that means, since the Federal Reserve controls our money, that the Federal Reserve controls 1/2 of every economic transaction in this country. That's an enormous power, and this is why the Austrian School of Thought believes that we should look into it. So these aren't my ideas. I wish they were. I can make a lot of money from them because they're very convincing. So if you want to learn more about it, it's very simplified in this video because of time. Go on the internet. It's all over the place. Or go to your library. I mean, the material is out there. All right, the boom-bust cycle. A lot of us assume that these giant bubbles and booms and busts are very natural for an economy, when in fact they aren't. They're caused by money creation out of thin air, either by the Federal Reserve, by the Bank of the United States in the early Republic, or even when there's not a central bank, such as the late 19th century, individual fractional reserve banks can still engage in monetary expansion. Now it's on a smaller scale because there isn't one giant banking cartel to coordinate it, but individual banks can still do it. This is called fractional reserve banking, when they issue notes that are greater than the amount of gold and silver they have in their vaults. All right. In any event, monetary expansion causes the boom-bust cycle, along with artificially low interest rates. Remember, the interest rate today is determined by the Federal Reserve arbitrarily. Right now it's at 0. In a free market, the interest rate would reflect the pool of savings that is available. Let me explain. If at any given time the amount of savings increases in a free market, that means that interest rates would decrease because there is now an increased pool of savings to fund projects. And with the opposite effect, if the pool of savings goes down, that means interest rates are going to go up because there's not as many savings to fund that project, and the banks need to make it harder, more difficult for investors and capitalists to engage in these projects. When the Federal Reserve and these banks, however, artificially determine these interest rates and keep them lower than what the market would determine these interest rates at, and with no regard for the amount of savings, that means that projects that would not have been sustainable at a higher rate of interest are all of a sudden, profitable at a higher rate of interest, are all of a sudden profitable under this arbitrarily low rate of interest. So you have money creation, low interest rates, easy credit, leading to malinvestment, because investment choices are made that would not have been made in a free market, but because money is so easy to come by, because interest rates are artificially lowered by the Federal Reserve, now they are profitable. Money creation, malinvestment, and then the bust. The bust occurs when investors realize that the projects that they believed were profitable, that they believed were sustainable, are in fact not sustainable because the savings are not there to fund those projects. It was all an illusion. That is what the Federal Reserve is. It's a complete illusion of the amount of savings that is out there to fund projects. So what happened in 2000? In the 2000s, the Federal Reserve had very low interest rates, money creation everywhere. They're just handing out money, which led to a housing bubble because constructors just went wild, building houses everywhere, engaging in projects that would not have been profitable and therefore would not have been engaged in a free market with a natural market rate of interest. The same thing happened in the 1920s. Between 1921 and 1929, industrial production increased by 100%. This was due to, yes, money creation by the Federal Reserve. Interest rates were very low in the 1920s. And then in 1929, you saw a bust as investors realized that these projects that they believed were sustainable were in fact not sustainable because the savings were not there to fund them. Even in the 1810s, when the Bank of the United States fueled a wild speculation of Western land, and the value of Western land skyrocketed, fueling this huge bubble. In 1819, people woke up from their drunken state of cheap money and realized that it was all phony, it was an illusion, and land prices dove, and you saw a huge panic. It was disastrous for the entire country, even people who didn't invest in it. So, again, money creation, malinvestment, the bust. When the bust occurs, people abandon projects they thought were sustainable, which leads to unemployment, losses for companies, the stock market goes down. It's the whole thing. All right? Think of this analogy, and I did not come up with this analogy. A few other people have said this before, but I think it's a great one. Ben Bernanke is like that guy at the party who brings a keg of beer over, and everybody loves him because they can get drunk off his alcohol. He's the man of the hour. He's popular. Woo, go Bernanke, yeah. And then they wake up the next morning and have a giant hangover, huge headache, and they're like, whew, what was I thinking last night? Why did I do that? Why did I make that investment? That was ridiculous. But today, in 2009, Ben Bernanke's trying to convince us to do it again. He's saying, hey, wait, guys, don't go away. I got a whole nother keg out back. Come on, guys, let's go. And, we're all sitting there saying, whoa, wait a second. Your alcohol created the problem in the first place. Maybe our solution isn't to drink again, Mr. Bernanke. Maybe our solution is to stop drinking your alcohol in the first place. Okay? We could avoid this hangover if we just stop drinking. And that's the problem. America, in this analogy, is an alcoholic nation. And if we want to stop these giant boom-bust cycles, we have to stop with the all the money creation. Anyway, that's all. I will talk to you guys later. Bye.